Hi, developers. I'm Evan Vishy, the community manager at Tatum, and today we're joined by Peter Abilla, the VP of Marketing, Partnerships, and Community at Harmony. Harmony is a fast and open blockchain that places an emphasis on cross-chain compatibility, and we've just recently integrated it in Tatum, so you can now use our API to build apps on it with all the built-in functionality in Tatum. But today we're going to be talking more about the blockchain itself, and I'm excited to hear about it straight from the source. So how are you doing today, Peter?
Great, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So yeah, we spoke briefly before, and you mentioned that you haven't always been involved in the blockchain space. So what was your career journey like from working at Amazon and eBay to, joining Harmony?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, we love Tatum and really grateful that we can partner together to help make the developer experience better. I think you guys bring a ton of value to the developers that are building on Harmony, and I think it's going to make their job as developers easier. Ultimately, we want developers to build and then really focus on kind of the user experience, user acquisition, and not have to worry about the nuts and bolts of things. And I think Tatum does a really great job of enabling that. So I'm super excited to be partnering with Tatum.
Yeah, we're happy to have you in the system. That's awesome.
Awesome. We well, yeah, I as you mentioned, I started my career a long time ago at Amazon. I've always been in technology and always kind of love it. So I got my master's degree in computer science, but I didn't really actually. I was a software engineer for like a year, and then after that, I got into more businessy stuff. And so I have kind of remained in that way, but have always been in technology. So after Amazon and eBay, I worked at a number of startups, mainly in the SaaS B2B space, and have been in that kind of space had been in that space for a while. And around mid 2016, I started kind of delving more and more into blockchain. I had heard about it, knew a little bit about it, but and was participating in a few communities. Telegram wasn't a huge thing back then. And so to get involved in the communities, you actually had to like get in touch with the teams themselves. And then they would have their own kind of like forums that they were mainly on. And so I started participating in some of the communities and really loved it. And then just kind of decided to jump in full time around end of 2016, early 2017, and have been in it since and love it.
Awesome. So what do you find exciting about it? I mean, how do you feel it has the potential to shake things up?
I guess what I love the philosophy around it. Multiple things. So first, the philosophy of kind of this idea of decentralization, allowing participation from more people, giving everyone an equal voice. Like conceptually, that's just a really great thing to support. And I love that part about blockchain. And I also love the people in it. The more I rub shoulders with folks from other projects and from just people in the community, I really love the feeling of kind of being part of something much bigger than myself. And I get that feeling in blockchain. That's a feeling I kind of had when I was at Amazon. I was at Amazon pretty early when the stock price was like $15 to $18. And at that time, everyone thought Amazon would go out of business. But inside of Amazon, like we all felt like we were doing something pretty amazing, and that this was going to change the world. And I have that same kind of feeling now in blockchain, that this is something bigger than me, bigger than us, and we're moving towards something pretty exciting, and we're part of it now at like the very, very early stages, and that's really exciting.
Sure. So, and what is what I don't know. I mean, it's hard to put a specific label on what that bigger thing is, but how do you see the bigger thing we're moving towards? I mean, what is it that?
I think we're seeing glimpses of it now.
Mhm.
We're seeing some parts of what we consider kind of like traditional business being disrupted a little bit, um, especially in finance. We're seeing um, these concepts from DeFi slowly getting into traditional finance, and that's pretty exciting. And so, what are those things? Well, um, open access is one. Um, barriers to entry are reduced. Um, really anybody in decentralized finance can participate um, in a number of applications without having to meet some kind of criteria. Whereas, in traditional finance, you kind of have to be on the inside a little bit, or at least have access, or have the right network to participate in some in some situations. And so I'm seeing that now, that parts of DeFi are slowly moving into kind of like the traditional finance um, world, and they're seeing some of these folks in traditional finance that I'm speaking with. They're quite jealous of the folks in DeFi, of what they can do, the lack of I guess things that they have to comply to. And so the open field for experimentation is much larger, and that's pretty exciting. So I'm seeing it, at least mainly in finance. We're also seeing it a little bit in the consumable, like the consumer world, where you have kind of the the massive growth of NFTs. And so we're seeing sports collectibles moving to NFTs, and really lots of different industries are now thinking about how can they incorporate this idea of the NFT into their business. And that's pretty exciting too. And so those are really kind of two areas that I see mainly. And it's just getting started.
What else makes Harmony unique as a blockchain? What are you bringing to the table?
Yeah. Like when we started back a couple of years ago, we really started as a chain focused on solving the scalability issue. And so our unique architecture with sharding kind of brought that to the table. We're like other chains, we're super fast and super cheap. And so it's almost stable table stakes now, that if you are not fast or cheap, then it's going to be really hard to build anything on your chain, or really it may not be economically feasible to interact with your chain. And so we're really grateful that we have at least achieved the scalability and aspect of it, that we're fast, we're cheap. We have 2-second finality. It's gas costs are trivial. And so what else do we bring to the table? I think a couple of things. I think the first one is we have a really, really large and healthy community. It's when I joined Harmony about a year ago, that was the number one thing I recognized was, wow, the community in Harmony these are like rabid fans of Harmony. And it really was a huge confidence builder to me, having just joined Harmony, that the community was large, very supportive of Harmony, and they were willing to go out of their way to do things for the community. And I love that. And that's kind of how, when you see these open source networks, it really starts with the community, and the community kind of making sacrifices and doing things on their own on behalf of the network. And I saw that at Harmony. And so I think that's the first one is, the community is huge and it's supportive, and we love our community. I think the second thing is, this, you mentioned interoperability. This continues to be a problem for really most chains, and it's something that we're very, very focused on solving. The interoperability aspect is really across a couple of different angles. Number one is like the communication between chains. And number two is access. And I think the third one that we're seeing now, at least in DeFi, is Well, now we have these applications on multiple chains. Let's take sushi, for example. Sushi is now on, I think, like 4 or 5 different chains. Um, and to interact with sushi on those chains, you have to use the bridges from, one chain to the other, and bridge assets from one to the other. And so what we're seeing is kind of a fragmentation of assets across chains. And so you'll have, the wrapped ETH on Harmony, which is what we call one ETH. And then you'll have, ETH on Polygon, ETH on XDAI. And so you'll have, and so what's happening is that liquidity is fragmented. And that's kind of becoming a problem that I don't think a lot of people expected. And so that's another, that's something that we're looking at pretty heavily, is how do we aggregate liquidity across multiple chains? And, and what can Harmony do to help that? And so we have some researchers inside of Harmony really looking into that. And we published a white paper, I want to say like 3 weeks ago, that addressed that topic specifically. And we have researchers kind of trying to figure that out now.
Sure. Well, cool. So what else is in the pipeline for Harmony in the immediate future that you can talk about as of now?
Yeah. So we announced on July 15th a pretty big hackathon. We're calling it Bridging TradeFi to DeFi. And it's a hackathon where Harmony is giving away up to $1 million in prizes and seed funding. And the main theme of the hackathon is we recognize that there are people in traditional finance, software engineers, quantitative analysts, quant jocks that are really, really good at what they do. And they recognize that there's something going on in DeFi and blockchain, and they want to become part of it. And so we want to bridge that gap. And so we want to make this hackathon as the vehicle by which we can bring in brand new Web 2 traditional kind of or software engineers from these banks, and give them kind of a taste of Web 3 and help them slowly get into DeFi. And we also recognize that us already in blockchain, we can learn a lot from folks from traditional finance. These guys are, these folks are, they understand kind of like the problems that are inherently in finance, and more so than we do, I think, unless you've been in finance yourself. And so, we can learn a lot. And they can learn a lot from us. And so it's going to be a really great hackathon to bridge that gap is really the main theme. So the hackathon, you can register for it now. You can go to hack.harmony.one and register for it. The hackathon formally begins August 16th and will run through to September 30th. We're going to have a number of challenges that we're going to present at opening ceremonies that that developers will be able to tackle and submit their solutions to. And we're excited for that. Tatum is going to be one of the prize partners, and we're excited to have you guys on board. And we have a number of other prize partners. Terra is one, Sushi another, CoinGecko, Misari, a number of other ones. And we're super excited for and happy that the prize partners have decided to jump in and be part of this. It's going to be a really good, welcoming hackathon to people brand new to blockchain and DeFi, and we want to be very welcoming as a community to software engineers from traditional finance. And so that's the big thing that's happening right now. I think like 4 weeks ago, we launched Sushi on Harmony, and it's been hugely successful. As of right now, there is 43 million in liquidity on Sushi on Harmony, and roughly 50 million of bridged assets on our bridge. And so participants interested in that can participate in some of the farms on Harmony, and alongside with Sushi, Harmony is providing up to $4 million with of liquidity rewards, with for the next 6 months to a year, depending on the emission rate and how many people kind of jump in. But those are it's a great way to participate and kind of get your feet wet if you're interested in DeFi. And the Sushi team has been really, really great to work with. So
Cool. Cool. Sounds awesome. So I wanted to ask just more about your role at Harmony. You mentioned you're partnership manager and that you're in charge of trying to expand the developer ecosystem to make sure they have the tools they need to make great apps on Harmony. How do you go about finding out what they need and finding the right tools to help them, or building the right tools to help them?
yeah, that's a really great question. So the developer experience is something that we always have on top of our mind. Like, we want to make sure that we meet the needs of developers. And one thing that we've heard a lot, that building on Harmony, like they want it to be easier. They want really great documentation. They want more kind of how-to videos. They want easier access to our developers, and they want just kind of better tools overall. And so as a team, we looked at all the feedback that we were getting from developers, and we have a number of things in place to meet those needs. You mentioned the partnership route. And so we recognize that there's a lot of features that developers want. And so the way to go about that is we either partner with teams that already have those services and enable them on Harmony mainnet, or we build those ourselves. And so we, on the partnership route, we've partnered with Tatum. And so now developers can access Tatum on Harmony, and it's going to be an easier experience for them to build applications. We have a number of oracles on Harmony, API 3, Band, and Chainlink, because developers want price feeds. And so now we've enabled that. We recently launched verifiable random function, VRF, on Harmony. And so developers building games can now access it natively on Harmony, so that they can have access to a random number generator, et cetera. And so we want to provide all of these kind of services and features for developers. Providing better documentation is kind of a longer effort, because you can always improve your documentation. And so we're doing a big inventory check right now of all of the documentation we do have, improving those, and then creating documentation for things that we know we should have but don't. And so that's something that we're working on, and we're getting help from the community on that.
So, I mean, it's hard to predict where any of this is going, but where do you see the blockchain space going in the next 10 years? And do you think that mass adoption of blockchain technology for, I don't know, mass use is feasible within that time, or likely to happen?
I always shy away from predictions just because I don't know what I'm even doing tomorrow. So
sure. That's fine. That's
but
really cool.
But I do think we see the future of blockchain as being very multi-chain. And we see that continuing. There's going to be a plurality of chains, and I think interoperability between chains is going to be continue to be a challenge. And Harmony wants to provide really great, easy solutions for that by providing these trustless bridges across chains. And so I see that as kind of going to continue to be a challenge in the future. As far as like mass adoption, we are looking, so we at Harmony, we're looking at how can we create a wallet such that people like my mom, who is not very technically savvy, could use a wallet and feel comfortable and confident and be able to run transactions and enable commerce. And so we're building a wallet now that's still in kind of, it's not quite stealth. We're doing a very controlled pilot on it right now. But we see the wallet really as the conduit by which people, this idea of 1 million people jumping into blockchain, it's going to be through the wallet, and we're trying to tackle that right now. We can't say much more about that, but we will soon.
Sure.
So,
well, great. Well, I think that's all from me. I mean, it's been great talking to you and hearing, your perspective on these things. And Harmony definitely seems like you're doing great things, and there's a lot of promise in the, well, basically the mission statement and the way you're approaching it. So we're really happy to be working with you. And so yeah, thanks again for joining us.
Awesome, thank you.
And so for everyone, we're going to put some links in the description, definitely to the hackathon and to the Harmony website, and to all of the API documentation to get you started on Harmony. And thanks for joining us. And until next time, happy coding.